Hello everybody, welcome back to Cinema Savvy. It is myself, George, bringing a brand new review, and today I'm going to be reviewing Twisters, which of course is now out worldwide in cinemas. Directed by Lee Isaac Chung, starring Daisy Edgar Jones, Anthony Ramos, and of course Glenn Powell. A film I've been very much looking forward to seeing upon its release. I saw the original a few weeks ago. There's a review of that out on the channel for anyone that's interested. I had a blast of that, and that made me very excited to come along to watch the new one. But before I start talking about that sort of stuff, I'm of course going to want to hear from you, so please do comment with your thoughts on Twisters. If you've seen the new one, if you're not going to watch it, if you've seen the original, you're a fan, I'm really curious to know what people think of this, especially people that maybe grew up with Twister when it first released, or they've seen it over the years, or maybe they remember it at the time. It was the second biggest film of the year with Independence Day, so it is one of those that's got a bit of a history, and I do want to hear from multiple people. And of course, if you want to find out about other videos, other reviews we're working on, you can go get us on LinkedIn. Oh God, not LinkedIn. Christ almighty, not LinkedIn. Thank God for that. Letterboxd, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. It's in our link tree in the description below, linktree.com/cinemasavvy. And we've also got a Redbubble store as well for anyone that wants to pick up any merch. But getting away from all that sort of stuff, I'm going to go out talking about the first Twister film, because I mentioned on the review a few weeks ago I had a blast with it. I didn't know what to expect. I knew there'd be a Twister in it. I didn't know who was in it. I didn't know any cast members in it. I didn't know the story, what it was about. I went in blind and I had a great time. And I was really looking forward to the sequel, not only for Glenn Powell being in it. I called it on our Hitman review, The Summer of Powell Starting. He is one of the emerging talents. The jokes of he's inherited or he's the chosen one to follow from Tom Cruise. Everyone's seen the photo from the London red carpet. It is one of those which is pretty great, and it's not hard to think about how exciting his career is. We've seen some of the films he's attached to recently. I mentioned Hitman, of course, Top Gun Maverick. He just has that natural charisma, a proper film star in the making. And I was very excited to see him in this. I saw one trailer for this at the cinema a few months back. I haven't had it overplayed. I've not seen much about it. I can say I basically went into this film cold as well. And initially, I've had a great time. And I'm doing this review a little bit later than normal. I would have been at the press screening, and this is a very snobby thing, whether people will care or not, but it wasn't being shown in IMAX. Very surprising for a press screening, and for people that obviously followed this channel, have seen my reviews, I always talk about how important that cinematic experience is. This is a film I wanted to see in IMAX. This is a film, I'll go as far to say, I would watch this in 4DX if the opportunity presented itself. I'm not going to go out my way to see it in 4DX, but I would watch this in 4DX. And I just don't think watching it at normal screen would have done this experience justice for me and what I wanted to talk about with the review, as I always talk about that experience. And I absolutely have to say it was well worth the extra 4 days wait to get this video up later. Go and see this in IMAX. And I haven't even spoken about the plot or what I enjoyed yet. The sound design in this, and yes, I'm talking about sound before visuals, is superb. I have not seen an IMAX utilise this. Ironically, a year ago in 2 days with Oppenheimer, some of the best sound I've heard on that big screen. The way it's been built in, I don't want to talk about Oscars and stuff like that, it's July, but I think the experience watching this, having that sound system with the IMAX, yes, I'm at a more modern IMAX. Again, just get it an Oscar nomination for sound next year. I'm not going to talk about anything else with respect to Oscars, but I very rarely think about that with a film, especially when you think about what a Twister is. It's a tornado, it's a visual image. So I didn't expect the sound experience to be as good. Of course, me watching the first film was at home, so it's a different setup to the cinema. I said in that video I would have loved to have gone to a re-release of Twister before this to have brought in a new audience. I think people might have gone to it. I hope people go and watch this weekend, but from an experience standpoint, I had a whale of a time. It's the middle of a heat wave. It is roasting here. We got aircon for 2 hours, which is another bonus. I went straight after work, so I was at one of the earlier screenings. There were 6 people in my screen. Again, I know it's the earlier one. Not many people are going to make a 5 o'clock on a Friday. And just had a look for the later screening, and it's a lot busier. So I'm optimistic at this film's chances at the box office because, yes, it's not an original film, but we do want cinemas to succeed. And it doesn't mean you have to blindly say go and watch everything at the cinema, but it is great when people turn up for event films to see certain actors, what they're enjoying, what films they're hearing good things about. And I kind of have that to say about this. And akin to the first film, I didn't know much about the story to this, and I didn't realise that Daisy Edgar Jones was actually going to be the leading character. I didn't realise Anthony Ramos was going to be in this film as a key character too. I can see he's now in the marketing. He was at the red carpets with them. I just didn't really see much aside from the main two being advertised everywhere. Of course, it is Glen Powell's film. You're almost waiting for him to turn up before his introduction, and he has a fantastic few opening scenes. And I just want to talk about the direction from Lee Isaac Chung. This is his first one since Minari, and I think that came out in 2020, and I remember really enjoying Minari. He'd, of course, I think worked on The Mandalorian. I can't remember which episode, but he's someone that is very much in that American system, and I was worried the announcement of him taking involved with this film. Now, I hadn't seen the original, but you get these great directors that have maybe done an indie film and then they're thrust onto the big scene. Okay, Marvel did it more than most, and then it becomes that you're the studio guy. But this film feels like the director has made the film he wanted to make. The story is not only competent, but it's engaging. And like that first film, it isn't just me watching this film and enjoying the spectacle, seeing the Twister tearing things up. It's the story taking place, it's the character developments, the relationships we're building upon. And I think this film does a very good job at putting that into a 2-hour summer blockbuster, and you don't get that a lot, especially with disaster films. Normally with disaster films, it's incredibly predictable. You kind of work out character fates the moment you meet them. And I didn't feel like I had that with this one. And actually, I'll go far to say, and I'm going to avoid nipping into that spoiler territory, the film does a really interesting story arc as an overall that in the first film, you straight away you're with the science guys. They've not got the money, they've not got the tech, all that sort of stuff. And the money is very much the villains with that. And it makes a key part of that with Carrie Hill's character. In this one, we're beginning with the characters that have the technology, but they're not geared up as villains, not geared up as these corporate suits, and you're naturally in this story with them, that you understand why they're doing it. And then what the film slowly does is they bring in your Glen Powell, the Tornado Wranglers as they call them. They start bringing in these potential antagonists, but actually you hit a turning point, and very quickly you sort of notice these are all pretty cool, they're not doing anything wrong, and it's a really interesting take to get a different perspective on chasing tornadoes. And obviously as the film develops, you then sort of move further into that natural enjoyment weather type thing, akin to the first film. So there's a lot of similarities there. It's predictable to a point, but I just think there's a really unique story in this. And maybe because of life over the last few months, things are a bit different, but the film isn't just about getting the science of tornadoes. The film isn't just hitting you on the head with these messages. It's a really heartwarming film, and I didn't think I would get that. As I said, I went in for the action set pieces, and the action set pieces deliver. The tornadoes look superb. The effects I thought were great. Seeing characters in peril, the ensemble cast I really loved as well. I didn't know Kate O'Brien was going to be in this film. That was a great surprise. She popped up as well. I mentioned Anthony Ramos. But if I'm going to talk about the two main characters, of course, Glen Powell, Daisy Edgar Jones, if you've seen the press tour, they've had incredible chemistry, and that translates into this film. If I'm really honest with you, I could have spent another couple of hours with these characters. I had such a great time being in the story with them, and I guess that's a massive praise on the first film and the sequel, that it didn't lose what made that first one great. It didn't become a corporate sequel. It didn't become this paint by the numbers. The director has made the film he's intended on making, and it's so much better for that. And there is a maturity to this blockbuster that I think a lot of people will enjoy it when they watch it. Whether people watch it, I guess that's the big one. I'd love people to see it at the cinema. It's definitely a much better experience being in the cinema, and kind of a moment that sort of was jaw-dropping. There's not a credit scene, but the end credits, you want to stay for and watch them because it's a very visual. It could almost be a perfect intro credits, but they're worth watching. And I completely didn't realise that David Corenswet in this, who's just been cast as Superman, and the character he's playing in this, the first time I watched it, I'm doing a review on it, there's a moment where I think, oh man, he's got like a Henry Cavill build. Like, this guy's pretty big. That could be played by Henry Cavill. Then cut to 2 hours later and you realise, oh shit, that's the new Superman. Yep, I can see it. That's made me excited for Superman. I hadn't seen him in anything else. So it's great that I've had that little experience. And when I spoke about that first one a few weeks ago, I kind of mentioned, you look at what that cast did in 1996 after. You've got a young Philip Seymour Hoffman in there. You've of course got Bill Paxton there, who'd done so much at that point. You've got Helen Hunt in there. It's a great ensemble cast that made that first film. And I feel like we could have this with Twisters. We know Glen Powell's going to be a star. Daisy Edgar Jones had a very successful career so far, almost in its infancy. Anthony Ramos was great in The Heights. And then bringing in some of these other actors, David Corenswet, if he ends up being Gargantua in a Superman, people will go back to this film. And it's too early to talk about that. I'm looking at my Top Gun Maverick quad poster, and I'm sat there thinking about Top Gun Maverick 2, where 2 years later, I'm seeing articles on Manny Jacinto. Of course, he was in The Acolyte and he was great in it. He was one of the pilots that didn't get anything to do in Top Gun Maverick. And you look at what that cast are moving on to already. Glenn Powell, obviously. It's a really interesting time for cinema, and it's interesting to see films like this. And kind of my review is go and see it. I absolutely loved it. I mentioned the story's heartwarming, there's character development. My gaping criticism of the film is I really didn't gel with the soundtrack. Not the orchestral side of it, as in some of the soundtrack choices at times felt a bit okay. People might be into that music, people might not be. That's just something that didn't gel with me too much, but I can negate that because that had no impact on my enjoyment of this, what I thought of these characters. I mentioned the spectacle, there's some really good set pieces, and it's quite inventive of how it wants to do it, and like that first film, it's more the science side of things. Now, I don't know anything about tornadoes, I don't know anything about science in school, but maybe that will make sense to some people. But it isn't just these people going along chasing tornadoes. At times it is, but there's a bigger picture to it, and I think it's very much worth watching on the big screen to find out for yourself. So that's going to be my review of Twisters. I hope you've enjoyed it. I very much enjoyed it. I'm not clamouring for a third film, no, but I'm very excited to see what some of this cast and the director want to do next, because I'll be watching that based off this, and that's going to be a polite way for me to round out this review. So once again, thank you everyone for watching. If you want to comment your thoughts, I'll reply to those in the comments as well. If you want to find out about other videos, we are getting back into the swing of things. There's going to be a review for The Boys on Sunday. The Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare is flying out in the UK next week, and obviously Deadpool and Wolverine is the really big one for the year, isn't it? So there's a lot of videos coming up. We've just finished doing The Acolyte, we've finished Doctor Who, there's been Cobra Kai, there's been a lot of TV. Things are getting busy, so we're delighted to be back doing that once more. And once again, thanks you to everyone for watching this, for your patience with the uploads and a lot more things. So take care, I'll see you on the next one.